Good evening, folks. I'm finally back. I had some fun in Marvel Rivals first, but now we're going to be doing Final Fantasy XIV Online. I'm going to keep this nice and short. Here we go. This is the moment you've all been waiting for, especially for some of you in particular that like this MMO. So, we're finally doing the Endwalker story after all this time. So, the reason why it took this long was I got all my jobs, tanks, DPS, and healers, all the way to level 90, with the exception of the Blue Mage, which is still at level 80. Not only that, I also got all my crafting and gathering to level 100. Jesus, that took forever. I got everything to level 90, and I even got the level 100 gear for the crafting and gathering. It's not all it's not all high quality, but at least the gear is high. At least I got level 100 gear at least. And in return, I lost Gil, but it was worth it. Anyway, we're finally gonna push on with this Endwalker story. Now, this is not the best time to be doing it, but I want to see some of the story that I've been waiting forever. So here we go. We're gonna go immediately and talk to Krill, just to continue on with the story. And if we're lucky, we're gonna get some voiceovers. Here we go. Old Charlayan new to you. This is the second quest in the entire Endwalker MSQ. So let's focus on the lowest one. Okay, let's do Black Mage. I had thought to launch directly into an explanation of what I've learned and how we might proceed. But this is Inio and Estinian's first time in Charlayan. And for the rest of you, a homecoming that was long overdue. You must have places you wish to visit, and people you're dying to see. Therefore, I propose we postpone our agenda so that you all may have sufficient time to recover from your journey and get your bearings in the city. Once you've settled in, we can reconvene at Baldesion Annex. How does that sound? It's a fine suggestion. You may not be welcome at the Livelier estate as such, but I should like to nose around the neighborhood all the same. I am equally untethered, as it were. There is no particular place that my kin call home. Still, I would not pass up the opportunity to acquaint myself with the city. Likewise, a quick tour of our old haunts might even yield some useful gossip. The annex was west of the Atara Plaza, wasn't it? I shall join you there then. Yes! I'll see you there. I, too, have places I would be remiss in not visiting forthwith. By their leave. What of you, Estinian? My services as a guide are yours for the asking. That won't be necessary. Until we reconvene, I prefer to wander as the wind takes me. But I could... Aww. Well, Raha, would you like to join us then? You've been gone for quite a while, and this would be the perfect way to refresh those dusty old memories of yours. Oh, of course! If you will have me. Come, Charlayan awaits. Also added some new headwear finally. So this is the music that you hear in Endwalker now. Sure, why not? Also, speaking of which, I forgot to fix one mistake. Give me a second. I forgot to do this earlier. There you go. Problem solved. After you, my friend. I'm more than content to follow your lead. Okay. All set? Then let us be on our way. Our first stop, amusingly enough, will be the last stand. It's a cafe on the west side of the harbor. Yeah. Sure. Sure, why not? With all the unusual wares coming and going at all hours, I expect the assistance of an intrepid adventurer would be highly appreciated. I see no reason why you couldn't undertake any task which pique your interest. You have been cleared by the immigration officials, after all. I look forward to the day your name is celebrated in Charlian the same way it is in Eorzea. This place is called the Peristyle, and it is the first stop for cargo unloaded at the docks. You'll find the usual necessities for daily living and other imports vital to running an island nation, but also supplies that further Charlian's pursuit of knowledge, namely, large quantities of books, specimens, and samples. Sorting these stacks certainly seems to keep the attendants busy. Okay. Again, this kind of reminds me of the Mass Effect in a way. Except this is an MMO. Why not? Now that is a sight they could hardly forget. The great statue of Taliak. As a student of Baldesion, I was usually quartered in the Isle of Val, but I would gaze upon the scholar's wise features every time I returned by ship to the city. That statue, nice. Okay, yeah, we did that already. What about you? This path leading out towards the sea is known as the Taliak Stoa, so named for the statue of the scholar which stands at its end. As you know, the Charlayan people prize the accumulation of wisdom above all else. Thus, when Taliak was chosen as our patron deity, it was more matter of pragmatism than belief, an alignment of principles, as it were. We may have honored him with a rather impressive sculpture, yes, but our fate is not so restrictive as that of, say, his guardians. Individual Charlayans can, and do, worship the divinities of their choosing. And finally, their final destination. This is a new thing in the game. Well, it's not a new thing in gaming, but still, it's nice to have. And here we are, the last stand. I may have mentioned this before, but although our research into nutrition and food preparation is quite extensive, the average Charlayan tends to regard seasoning and flavor with a certain indifference. How can I put this? The food is, it's bland. As encapsulated by our infamous Arkham loaf. The prevailing sentiment towards cuisine is dietary value first, and taste a distant second. There was one pupil at the studium, however, who could stomach the school's insipid meals no longer. So he quit his lessons and poured all his savings into building a proper eatery. And so the last stand came to be. It is, as the name implies, the sole dedicated outpost of fine dining in Charlayan. The one and only bastion of the culinary arts in an isle of otherwise mediocre fare. I seem to recall their burger being hailed as one of the more impressive items on the menu. Not that I ever had the pleasure of eating one myself. Because you are typical Charlayan when it came to cheap and convenient, Raha. But surely Tataru has since taught you how to appreciate a well-prepared dish. We should all stop in when time permits and sample the cafe's delights. Shall we press on? Stairs to the side of the cafe there will take us up to the Atara Plaza. You know what's funny? I already did this already. Oh, okay. So you can have some idle chatter. Oh, okay. Feels good to be doing this story now, uninterrupted. Yeah, the leveling with the roulettes took a freaking long time. But then again, it's an MMO, so that can be forgiven. An unusual shape, isn't it? I assure you, however, that it's a perfectly functioning aetheryte. Remember to attune yourself before you move on. Now, being the diligent tour guide that I am, I should make mention of the Confluence, a research facility located in this very plaza. Its much vaunted discoveries are the reasons Charlayan stands at the forefront of teleportation technology. In deciphering the underlying principles of Allagan aetherites, it allowed us to understand and reconstruct what was essentially a lost art. And off we go to our next destination. Our path leads northeast to the Agora, Charlayan's largest marketplace. I was told not to rush this story, and I will not. Do you mind if I browse the shelf for a moment? There might be some hidden gems I've yet to read. Only a moment? How optimistic. Feel free to browse all you like, but we won't wait around for you. Perhaps I'll return here later, then. These little open-air bookstalls are so uniquely Charlayan. I'd always thought them a common sight until I visited other nations. Okay. Feels so nice to do this now. Speaking of aetherites, those teleportation fees do add up after a while. Which is why I tended to rely on the far cheaper ferry services. I was pleasantly surprised when Mr. Sotaro informed me that the Scions are reimbursed for transportation costs as part of our duties. But I find old habits hard to break. That and rather not be bothered filling out the necessary paperwork. That's the entrance to the Confluence. I have no doubt their expertise will prove useful at some point. So I suggest you remember the way here. Okay. Let's go to the next destination. Yeah, this is a new thing in this game. Instead of just going from point A to point B, you do have optional conversations, which is nice. Okay. Welcome to the Agora, where you can find wares made in Charlayan, as well as a wide selection of imported goods. They also used to sell questionable prototypes from the various research institutes, but I think that practice has thankfully died out, for the most part. Otherwise, they can think of no better place to stock up for your next big adventure. Am I overselling it? On a more serious note, the next stop on our tour is one which has particular relevance to our ultimate purpose here. We must head back to Aether Plaza, follow the path north, then climb the stairs up to the imposing building at the very top. Yep, I think that's where our next area is gonna be. These little decorative features are typical of Charlayan architecture. Aside from the research wing, our headquarters in Isle of Val were rather simple and rustic by comparison. This is the Nymphaeum, an area dedicated to the blessings of water. For Charlayans, water represents more than a life-sustaining liquid. It is a reminder of the great flood which precipitated the birth of our nation, as well as a symbol of the knowledge which flows from Thalyak's divine Ewer. This is the reason you see an abundance of fountains throughout the city, and a propensity for utilizing water as a decorative feature in our architecture. Okay. I mean, at least the place looks different. It does definitely look a bit more European, but Yeah. This grand structure before you is the rostra. The name refers to the original public platform erected here, upon which a forum of elected representatives would deliver orations and debate policy. Although the stage has since evolved into council chambers, the nature of the forum and the duties of its members remain largely unchanged. Am I boring you, Raha? You seem awfully distracted. My apologies. From here, one can see the entire city spread out below. The vista put me in mind of my arrival in the first. Those who had gathered at the Crystal Tower asked me how they might go about building a new home. Naturally, my answers were all inspired by my knowledge of the finest settlement I could think of, the great city of Charlayan. And bit by bit, those few buildings grew into a town, a community. The Cristeria. You can almost see its echo. I see. Feel free to come up here whenever you wish. I don't think the councillors would object to you simply by enjoying the view. Such memories should be treasured. For now, however, the tour must go on. Our spectacle of sightseeing concludes with the fittingly named Journey's End. Walk down the stairs to the east and continue straight ahead. Oh. Oh, we're going that way. Whoops. Not going quite there yet. Not bad. Yeah, I put in so much time to level these up. It was worth it. We've arrived at Journey's End. History tells us this was where those who put ashore with Arca and Yonkref built their first homes. In the present day, it serves as a residential district for the most important officials and the oldest Charlayan families. You'll see that one mansion is clearly larger than its neighbors. That estate belongs to our friends from House Livelier. All things considered, we should probably keep our distance for the time being. And with that, we bring our little Charlayan tour to a close. I hope it has proven to be an entertaining and enlightening experience. Now, shall we head directly to the Paldician Annex? You remember the way, don't you, Raha? Let me think. We head down towards the harbor, across the bridge to our right, and follow the path below the Atera Plaza? Correct! After you. Okay. Where is it? Oh, wait a minute. We've got another one. There's another text bubble. It's optional conversations, but let's just listen in anyway. This is not a bad MMO for 10 plus years old, even if it does play it safe. This is different. We actually get to have more optional conversations. Again, optional, but might as well do it anyway. Right, we crossed this bridge here, as I recall. Stick to the path and be careful not to end up back in the Atera Plaza. Charlayan is full of educational research institutions, but there are still professors prefer to establish their own private practices. Not that I ever attended the exclusive schools that run in these residences. Perhaps the twins could tell you more about them. Sure. Again, just not bad. Running this game at 80 frames is pretty good. Yeah, the MSQs feel like they go on much longer because of this little feature, but I'm not complaining. As the joyous look on Raha's face has undoubtedly informed you, this is the Paldician Annex. If you continue up the hill, you'll arrive on the doorstep of Phenomenon. But I think we've explored enough for one day. We can take you there another time. Inside with you, then. Oh. I'm back, and I brought Inyo and Raha with me. Ah, you were right about the ship, then. Hello, Graha. It's nice to see you again. And it's a pleasure to finally meet you. I've heard many a tale of your exploits. Ojika! Ojika Tsunzika has been an age. Allow me to introduce Ojika Tunzika, Administration Officer for the students of Baldizian. He oversees the day-to-day business of the Annex. You may recall meeting his cousin, Ijika? Oh yes, Eureka. I've read the initial reports. Quite a shock to hear what's become of the Isle. Do take care if you have the opportunity to rejoin the expedition. This place is like a second home for the students. The Isle of Val served as our main headquarters, of course, but we often had occasion to visit Charlayan. Whether to make use of the city's research facilities, attend conferences, or procure supplies from distant shores. And the annex here is built to provide lodgings for our members, while we engaged in such activities. Ever since our former headquarters, along with the isle itself, vanished, the annex has served as our base of operations. And yet it feels so empty. With so many lost to us, our organization is a shell of its former self. The day will come when we will see the students rise again. But first, we must ensure that the Telefroi fall. Through that door on the left, there is the main hall, where we can discuss our options moving forward. Once everyone arrives, that is. We'll probably have time to rest before our discussions begin in earnest. I've had private quarters prepared for you in Yandron, so please, feel free to make yourself at home. Ah, the nap rooms. Perfect for an afternoon doze. Oh, I didn't mean to give you the wrong impression. The chambers are quite well appointed. Far more than some cheap roadside inn, you may be assured. It was simply that we were often so busy with research, or exhausted from journeys abroad, they would slip into the Undrun just to steal a few winks. And thus they became known amongst the students as nap rooms, even if many such naps might last well into the following morning. Say the word and I'll be happy to show you to your chamber. Hopefully the others won't be too long in coming. I'll wait for all of you in the main hall. So we have an inn. Sure. Sure. What does it look like? Nice music. Speaking of orchestrion roles, how many do we have? Not a whole lot, but it's something. I mean, I got some of them. Feels nice to finally catch up. Just one more expansion to go before we reach Endwalker. Sorry, Dawn Trail. Why am I mentioning Endwalker? This is Endwalker. Okay. Do you have papers pasted in the walls of your room? Well, it's not unusual for occupants to pick up notes for documents as such, and then forget to take them when they went on their merry way. Sometimes it was quite deliberate, though. You might see complaints addressed to other members, or a thank you card for the engrossing literature someone left behind. Beloved traditions that I should know better than to dwell upon. If we are to create a future for the students of Baldizian and so many others, we must look to the days ahead. Do we get a cutscene? Feeling refreshed and alert? Our colleagues should be wandering in soon. So I suggest we stay here and wait for them to join us.
Pray forgive me. I was delayed.
It's fine, Urianger. We're all here now.
Let's get down to business then, shall we? Come what may, we must prevent the Telophoroi's plans from coming to fruition. At present, I see two paths for gathering the information which may aid us in achieving that goal.
The whole point of this expansion. Here we go.
The first involves an investigation into the change which has come over Sharlayan, not to mention the recent inscrutable behavior of the Forum. As most of you know, the 99 members of the Forum are elected from the general populace. This alone guarantees a plethora of opinion with regards to foreign policy. The bibliotheques, for example, are a group of conservatives which would have Sharlayan focus on recording history, while remaining entirely uninvolved in the making of it. And at the other extreme, we have advocates for proactive diplomacy and direct intervention. My grandfather Galef was one such member, as was Archon Louisois. Yet despite our diverse factions and philosophies, the recent vote to deny Eorzea's request for assistance was unanimous.
Why?
Even more concerning was the fact that many cited other, more pressing duties as justification for their recalcitrance.
Fortuno's refusal in Gridania had those same undertones. 'Twas as if, having stared unblinking into the face of impending doom, he had simply turned away to pursue something more important. But what could that possibly be?
A mystery indeed, and one which I ask for your help to solve. Our future may depend on it. As for our second potential path, it concerns a request made directly to the students of Baldessian. Our organization was founded primarily to study strange and unexplained phenomena the world over. Mysterious relics and ruins, arcane disturbances, and so forth. Compared to our more isolationist Sharlayan colleagues, we have strong connections overseas, namely with scholars and academics who share our passion for the unknown. The request in question comes from one such acquaintance, Nidana, an alchemist residing in distant Thavnair. Her missive describes the sudden appearance of a tower, and the subsequent summoning of what I can only assume is a lunar primal. In response to this threat, the satrap of Radzat-Han, the individual who governs the city-state, has instructed the alchemists to find a means to deal with the spire.
The artisans of that land are heirs to an ancient tradition, one rather unlike that of their Uldan counterparts. It is possible, nay, probable, that they have gleaned truths unattainable by Eorzea or her Far Eastern allies.
They do, in fact, appear to have a strategy in mind, though it will require further research. To that end, they have requested an introduction to a capable warrior shielded by the blessing of light.
Assuming we divide our forces to pursue both of Kral's lines of inquiry, then having you join the group heading to Thavnair would seem the obvious choice. But the investigation in Sharlayan is of vital importance as well. Equal, I think, to the Thavnairian one, given that the fate of the world may hinge on the results of both.
Yes, it is quite the quandary. Though it is a great imposition and an altogether too common one, our efforts would be more likely to succeed were you to lead the charge on both fronts. You are indeed our champion. As to which task to tackle first, we will defer to your decision. Let us next decide how everyone else might best be assigned. As for myself, I shall continue what I've begun in Sharlayan. I should also like to steal the services of an Archon or two.
And thereby gain access to a greater range of reading material. I will help with that.
Allow me to offer my assistance. I have some small amount of experience in the field of research.
Alize and I would also like to help, if you would have us.
Anything to understand even a fraction of what our father and the Forum might be thinking.
Of course! The more the merrier.
Right. The rest of us will make the journey to Thavner. Thoughts? Objections?
I passed through Thavner on my way to infiltrate the Empire, and though I'm not qualified to give a guided tour, I did gain a sense of where things lie.
I'll be happy to have you along then. So for this group, it will be you, me, and Urianger.
Give me a moment afterwards, and I'll supply you with all the details of Nadana's request. Consider this hall our rendezvous point once our respective tasks are complete. May our investigations prove fruitful.
And that is the whole point of the story so far in this expansion. Sweet. Just turn into a dancer. So we're gonna have to do 2 MSQs. Okay. Alright, let's do the Krill ones first. Hitting the books. Sure, why not? An unsettling change has come over Sharlayan, but together we will divine the underlying cause of the Forum's callousness. As I mentioned before, however, questioning the councils directly is a fruitless endeavor. They seem to have already come to a consensus as to what and how little they are willing to divulge. Which is why I began scouring the Sharlayan's archive of historical records of any hint of a connection to the final days. Suffice it to say, the progress has been slow. There are only so many dusty pages one can skim in a day. But now that I have this band of willing reinforcements, the search should proceed all the swifter. Let us reconvene outside Nominon, shall we? Exit annex to the right, and you'll find the archives on the western edge of the woods. Yeah, let's just do one at a time. Sure. Speaking of which, we already have a couple of additional side quests here. Oh boy. Don't be surprised if these will unlock new dungeons and stuff. We'll do those later. Oh, we're going the wrong way. Okay. Yeah, we'll check out these side quests later. We'll just focus on MSQ so far. And just as I suspected, you don't get anything, you don't get the new features of the expansion unless you do the main story. Which kind of makes sense. Again, I respect the fact that this game is still going after 10 years. They've already put in the time just to level up everything here, so might as well just keep it going. The only thing I have left to do in this game is just continue doing duty roulettes, just to get the remaining jobs to level 100. But thankfully, I only have to worry about doing the main story here, which will be fun. Everything's level 90 and I can do whatever I want. So, what is this investigation with the books is going to help us? My directions were easy enough to follow, I hope? In any case, you stand now before the doors of Nominon, Charlian's grandest collection of books and tombs. This building is actually only an entrance, and one of many at that, for the archives of Nominon extend deep beneath the surface like the roots of a tree. The vast halls of the Great Gubal Library pale in comparison to Nominon's endless maze of subterranean chambers. Any citizen of Charlian is free to enter and peruse its shelves. Well, most of its shelves. Only Archons are afforded access to certain restricted vaults. I've dispatched Stola and Raha to investigate those, while Alice and Alpinode will help me continue my search through the stacks open to the general public. Your status presents more of a problem. As a non-citizen, you're only permitted to browse the first floor here at the entrance. Even so, there should be a number of books which would touch upon Charlian history or foreign policy. Your task would define and study the relevant publications. I promise you, a working knowledge of those subjects will make it far easier to spot the sort of clues we're looking for. Let us be about it, shall we? I've told the others to meet us at the stone benches over there once they've found some promising tombs. Happy reading. You know what's funny? I haven't read a book in a long time. I was never a library person. I was never a library person at all. The story of Charlian. Well, sure, why not? Long, long ago, on an island in the Northern Sea, there lived a Roigedan man by the name of Njonkref. Njonkref was a student of astrology, and he divined that a flood of terrifying proportions would soon sweep over the lands of Eorzea. So it was that he built a gigantic ship, assembled a crew, and set sail for that imperiled realm. The flood arrived as foretold, and to their horror, the strangely churning waters drove people towards the ocean. It was there, however, that Njonkref's crew hauled them aboard his ark. But the danger had not passed. A towering wave approached, threatening to smash the vessel to pieces. With only moments to spare, Njonkref wove a mighty spell of teleportation and shifted the entire ship to safety atop of Balatia's spine. Refugees from the surrounding regions huddled there alongside them. But it was not long before disputes over the dwindling supply of food led to violence and bloodshed. Saddened by the sight, Njonkref gathered to him his crew and his grateful passengers, and abandoned the ark to those reddened peaks. They journeyed to the coast where they built a new ship, intent upon returning to the northern seas. They landed on the beach of an island and settled upon that very spot. That settlement prospered and grew, and in time it became the city of Charlian we live in to this day. For once, this is actually fun to do. The roads of old, the colony. Many years ago, on the banks of the Taliak in the Dervanian hinterlands, a Charlian colony once thrived. This settlement was originally established as a mere outpost to study the Ethereal Sea in the year 1311 of the 6th Astral Era. Scholars dispatched to Eorzea found the facilities wanting, and their demands encouraged a gradual expansion in structures and services. As rumors spread of a growing community of academics, the area is further inundated with Eorzean students hoping to share in the renowned wisdom of the Charlians. 50 years later, the Forum passed a motion to recognize what had become a flourishing town as an official Charlian colony. Eorzean residents took to calling the colony itself Charlian, which led to no small amount of confusion when discussions turned to the subject of the motherland. In response, some Charlayan inhabitants, if pressed for a name, would simply refer to it as Emporium. Following the Exodus, however, goblins and treasure hunters claimed for themselves a corner of the abandoned colony and gave it yet another name, Idleshire. The following chapter is going to introduce the most prominent features of Idleshire. This book does appear to contain it. How far can we see the textures? Actually, we can see it very far. Let's try this. Stewards of Wisdom. During the chaos of the Sixth Umbra Calamity, Arca Nuncre, founder of Charlayan, bore witness to the madness and savagery of men brought to the brink of despair. Upon raising a settlement on an island in the northern empty, he instructed his people thus, renounce the ways of war and pursue enlightenment through knowledge and reason. The Charlayans took to heart the words of their savior, and thenceforth served as stewards of wisdom. Upon the foundation of accumulated learning, they built a homeland like any other, a nation born from strength of minds, rather than strength of arms. With knowledge of economics came shrewd trading. With knowledge of agriculture came bountiful crops. Engineering brought wells and sewers, ending squabbles over water. Wealth of expertise could be bartered for wealth in coin. And the more their wisdom spread throughout the world, the more mankind as a whole would thrive. And so it was that no matter the trials and tribulations of the age, the citizens of Charlayan would live by their founders' teachings, for the sake of a better tomorrow, for the sake of a brighter star. They would eschew the tools of war, and with knowledge deliver the world. A well-worn manual. The Forever 20 Summers. My beloved seekers of knowledge, have you ever put learning before your health and neglected to feed and rest your body as you should? I, too, once engaged in such foolish practices. But one night, engrossed in philosophical study, I had an epiphany. For all the world's mysteries that drive us to the reckless abandon, we have so very few years of life in which to achieve our goals. Thus do I share with you this mantra: I am forever 20 summers young. The number itself is unimportant. You could be 19, or 23, or 40. Whatever age you are when you discover this manual, let that be the age you aspire to remain. Through mindful, healthy living, will you extend the time available to spend upon your chosen research. Another day, another moon, another summer to grasp the greater truths you pursue. In the pages that follow, we will explore the secrets of maintaining one's physical condition from biological, aetherological, and arcane viewpoint. This book is on the wrong subjects. Yes, I know. I'm just having fun reading everything. An introduction to the heavens. Have you ever gazed at the skies above and contemplated the mysteries contained therein? I speak not of shifting cloud patterns, but of the vastness beyond, of the sun and twinkling tapestry of the night. Some think the dome above us to be an infinite space. Yet amongst the leading thinkers of our age, one scholar's depiction of a boundless sea of stars has firmly taken root. Alas, this heavenly sea remains an unreachable, unknowable destination. There are few indeed who can explain, in satisfactory detail, why our own star is believed to revolve around the sun. It was the technologist of Alag who came closest to understanding the laws which govern the starry abyss. It was they who launched Dalamud and sought to expand beyond our earthbound existence. Having read of their ancient ambitions, I wonder, has your interest in this field of study waxed or waned? what if I were to tell you that the eternal constellations were arranged differently in the distant past? That their positions continue to shift almost imperceptibly but measurably as we journey into the future? Would it shock you to learn that the stars drift further and further apart, and may indeed do so forever? Are you eager to learn more? Yes, I know it's the wrong subject, but that was fun to read. Something different for once. I like it. I think this might be the last one. Yeah, this is the last one. The voice of a growing city. In the years which followed the founding of Charlayan, civic policy and other matters of import were decided at the Clixia, a public forum at which every citizen was eligible to speak. As the city's population grew, however, this format became increasingly impractical. The larger number of participants gave rise to ever longer debates, resulting in insignificant delays of vital resolutions. Various measures were introduced in an attempt to curtail protracted discussions, but in the year 201 of the 6th Astra era, it was ultimately decreed that Charlayan would transition to a new form of governance. The nation would now be led by a body of 99 members, citizens chosen from amongst their peers by means of a nationwide vote. Thus was the forum as we know it today conceived and created. Yes. Why is everything else so dark downstairs? But then again, you don't need all those light sources. Who knows? All right. Sorry, were you waiting long? I wanted to make sure I borrowed at least a few promising volumes. Alfinode and Krill should be along shortly. I was delayed in a similar fashion. As far as I could see, no titles in the Archon stacks mention the final day specifically, so we have no choice but to start with the tangentially relevant tombs, if they are even that. At present, the plan is to skim through as quickly as we dare, and share our discoveries as we make them. It would be nice to invite everyone to the estate. Plenty of comfortable places to read, and a ready supply of hot tea. Oh, I was always quite fond of reading outside. But it's not about the little pleasures, is it? You miss your home. It's been difficult. After our arrival, we managed to speak one of the family servants and ask how things were. It seems our dear father has instructed the staff that even if Alfinode and I were to return to Charlayan, we're not to be allowed across the threshold. A harsh measure, indeed. I hope that our efforts to understand his position and that of the Forum will perhaps lead to a reconciliation. We'll mend this rift one day. I'm certain of it. And what of you, Graha? Have you been to visit your family? Or do they not live here in the city? Well, my situation is also somewhat complicated. I was raised in Charlayan, yes, but I was born rather further away. In the southern reaches of Elzabard, in fact. For generations, my people have dwelt in Corvos, the coastal region opposite the island of Thavnir. The Elegans founded a city in that fertile land, and by ship, brought in the subjugated tribes of the Mikote to serve as laborers. Of course, the massive earthquake of the fourth Umbral Calamity brought an end to the Empire's reign, and when the fifth Calamity froze the seas solid, many of the tribes still living in Corvos braved the journey back to Eorzea. My ancestors, however, chose to remain, that they might prevent the remnants of elegant technology from being misused. Isn't Corvos under Garlean rule? For the past 50 years, yes. It's some semblance of local culture remains, as is the case for most imperial provinces. But Garlemald renamed the region Locus Amunius. When I was a boy, a nearby town came under the jurisdiction of an illustrious imperial family, the nobles of House Darnus. House Darnus demonstrated a singular interest in Allagan civilization, and so my tribe was forced to consider a plan of action. For some time already, voices had been raised in favor of abandoning our ancient customs. After all, the Allaganai no longer passed to our eldest children as reliably as it once had. Fear of discovery eventually tipped the scales, and the decision was made to bury our ties to the knowledge and traditions of Allag. As the last child born with the Allaganai, I was given over to the custody of friends and the students of Baldicion, who had me registered as a Charlian citizen. I never even considered. Forgive me, it was an unkind question. Even Thancred was taken in by Archon Loiso, was he not? Stories of adopted wives and rescued orphans are more common among Charlians than you might think. Yet regardless of our origins, we were all provided with an equal opportunity to learn. And with sufficient perspicacity, we outsiders can even earn the vaunted title of Archon. This is exactly why I have such love for this country, and why I wish to remain a nation of which its citizens can be proud. Hear, hear. Another good reason to get to the bottom of the Forum's stubbornness, aside from the trifling matter of our impending doom. Excuse us while we try to make some headway into these books. More company should be arriving any moment now. Do we get voiceovers, or... What else do I know of Corvus? Precious little, I'm afraid. I've not returned since Master Gallo first brought me here. I can tell you that Corvosi rebels still seek to slip the yoke of the Imperial Masters, though the fighting is far less fierce than it once was. Oh, and they have carpets. Flying carpets. The legends are quite extraordinary. There are others better suited to poring over the old history books, so I thought I would try my luck with more recent events. If I can find anything to better inform the Forum's baffling behavior. We returned with our selections. Although I must say, the pickings were quite slim indeed. Mrs. Creel has already flicked through every history book devoted to disasters, and more than a few which barely made mention of them. As such, we'll be looking into research papers on Obra calamities, as well as articles written by prominent forum members. Perhaps their knowledge of the final days comes from an unexpected source. Speaking of which, might I ask you a few questions related to final days? I'm the only one here who didn't witness the events of Amarut firsthand, and in fear I may be overlooking critical details. Right, thanks. Now, where to begin? First things first. What kind of phenomena did the ancients encounter as the final days drew nigh? Primals of unreliable power summoned from the ether. Ahem. I believe Heidelin and Zodiac were summoned after the final days had arrived. Quite deliberately, in fact. If we are speaking of phenomena caused by the final days, the chaos of creation magics ran rampant. It was what first comes to mind. Fear and despair manifested in terrible, tangible fashion. Meteors raining from the sky. Fire erupting from the ground. Indescribable abominations prowling the streets. That more or less aligns with my understanding. If only the arts of creation had survived until the present day, we might have had something substantial to analyze. To the best of our knowledge, however, those techniques were not preserved or passed on. Istola surmises that the closest known magic is that of the summoning rituals promulgated by the Ashians. Was there aught else of note which heralded the approach of the final days? The entire star was engulfed by disaster all at once. I think you may be misremembering. Yes, I am. As I recall, it was more of a gradual spread. Elfino should be the one answering this, but hey, I guess you're trying to give us some fun. The Albertine spoke of keening, sound that rose from the land itself, just before a region was visited by catastrophe. It's been a while. We never did hear this sound ourselves, of course, thrust as we were into the midst of the madness. So the ground was crying out, you say? To be considered the harbinger of doom must have been quite distinctive, and probably quite loud. I'll have to speak with one of Numenon's mammoths, and ask after any books which makes mention of such a sound. Last but not least, would you describe how the ancients sought to quell this unprecedented calamity? What definitive action did they take? I'm probably gonna get this wrong, but who cares? I think they summoned Hylian, but I'll probably get it just wrong. Who cares? Who cares? I believe it was Zodiark who was summoned in response to the final days. Oh, so freaking close. My mind was thinking Zodiark, but if you haven't played this game in a while, you're not gonna remember every little detail. Unless you're a huge fan. But anyway, I digress. Many sacrificed themselves to bring him into being, with Elidibus serving as his heart. We do not know exactly. Even if you get it wrong, it doesn't matter, because you're gonna get to the same story point anyway. Unless if this was Baldur's Gate 3, you can do a whole lot more evil things. But I digress. We do not know exactly how Zodiark brought salvation to the star, only that by his godlike will were the laws of nature set aright. Then, once the balance was redressed, the ancients offered up a further sacrifice to heal the ravages of the final days. Lives sprouted anew, and it was these fledgling souls they intended to render unto Zodiark, a trade that would have allowed them to resurrect the shades of loved ones absorbed by the primal. Or might have, had Vinat and her fellows not manifested their opposition in the fort of Heideland. Thank you, both of you, for the detailed review. I feel much more confident now in my understanding of events. With all that freshly in mind, it does make me wonder what the Telefroi truly mean when they speak of bringing back the final days. We've seen what they're doing with those towers of theirs. Is forcing people to summon primals a kind of catalyst? Are they attempting to mirror the conditions caused by unstable creation magics? Or are they simply using the final days as a figure of speech? A convenient metaphor for the skill of destruction they plan to unleash. But this is all just pointless conjecture at this stage. Let us return our attention to the forum, shall we? We should keep an eye for Stola, but this time we can begin studying these research papers. And finally... Oh. Many forum members are also researchers or professors. If they not of the final days, then that knowledge might surface in their writing. That is my hope, anyway. It really is comforting to have all these dedicated assistants on hand. Right then, enough chatting, more reading! I'm the last, am I? Well, my extended search of the Archon stacks produced one or two possibly useful books. But I wouldn't get your hopes up. If you recall, Oriange learned of the source's reflections from the Giron oracles, for its potential to cause panic and confusion. That tomb was deemed Afaruka and sealed away in the Great Gubal Library. This even less likely than knowledge of the uncentered world, not to mention the horrors of the final days, would be left sitting on a shelf for any curious scholar to find. It stands to reason that my colleagues, be they Archons or Counselors, should perforce be largely ignorant on the subject. Yet when you confronted Master Fortunal with knowledge of the Telfroi and their machinations, he scoffed at the suggestion that they posed a threat. He seemed adamant that the Forum would know if the final days were truly upon us, which only supports the conclusion that whatever privileged wisdom is guiding the Forum's behavior, it is being kept secret from the rest of the nation. So, the plot thickens. Not that I mean to excuse myself from reading duty. Whether they contain mention of the final days or no, these books could yet hold something of value. You aren't thinking of leaving, are you? There's plenty of work for everyone. The camera work is pretty good too for this game. You labor for what feels like an age, still as research assistant. Thank you for your help, but I think I can manage the rest without your assistance. If I were you, I'd steal a few quiet moments for myself. I have found none of interest so far. I think Ishtola might be right about not getting our hopes up. Yep. Oh dear, you look exhausted. But what about your studies? Were you able to find any books on the subject I mentioned? Then the day was well spent. Should you wish to read them again, a man at the reference desk will point you in the right direction. For the moment, though, I suggest you take a well-deserved rest. We might be occupied with our research for quite some time. Okay. A seat at the last stand. We'll do one more. We'll do one more MSQ here. Which one? Okay, let's go back to the Black Mage again. Ready for a tea break? I know I am. Honestly, my neck and shoulders are going to calcify if I don't stretch my legs and walk around a bit. You know the last stand down in the harbor, don't you? Come and meet me near the outside tables, and I'll treat you to their coffee. It's quite good. I wish I could. I wish I could experience what that's like. Imagine being so interested in a fictional world that you'll never get to experience it. I digress. Again. I mean, after all these years, we finally get this. This came out in what, 2021? I don't remember. Imagine seeing this for the first time back at all those years ago. Honestly, I don't feel like I'm too far behind. I mean, sure, I haven't done all the side quests, the minor ones, but I'll eventually get to those. As busy as ever, I see. How very Charlie and the no other gourmet cafe has sprung up to compete for our customers. Actually, this crowd gives me an idea. Before we place an order, why don't we ask a few questions and gauge the mood of the city? I'm interested to hear what the average citizen has to say about the Telefroi. Might even learn something new. Worth a try, don't you think? Sure. What is it? Can a man enjoy a moment of private respite? If you're looking to share a table, then I respectfully request that you look elsewhere. You misunderstand, sir. We were simply wondering if you knew of the Telefroi. These enemies of peace have promised an end to all we hold dear and... Wait, you're that house delivery little girl, aren't you? And this man with you is obviously a foreigner. I'd heard you were disowned for helping outsiders indulge their barbaric whims. And here you are, giving truth to the rumor. I'll thank you to leave me be, and not to say the likes of you. Well, I must apologize. It was foolish of me to expect an ounce of civility from one so enlightened. Come. And finally... Yes? I don't believe I've had the pleasure. Pray excuse the interruption, but we were hoping you might share your thoughts on the Tillefroy and their unconscionable plans. My goodness, if it isn't the young Miss Livelier. My apologies, but I work in the offices of the Forum, and if word reached Master Foshinot that I was helping you... I see. Well, sorry to have bothered you. Welcome, sir. What can I offer you today? Wait, is that Mistress Alice AC there? My word, how long has it been? Far too long. Meet Dickon, the owner of The Last Stand. I used to frequent his cafe on occasion, in between lessons at the studium. That seemed like an age ago now. I remember hearing that you and Master Alphinaud had set sail for Eorzea, but then you never came back. Lately, there's been gossip about your father disowning the pair of you. Everything alright at home? It's complicated, and I hadn't expected complete strangers to be so familiar with our situation quite so quickly. Everyone has opinion, it seems. Well, it is House Livelier. No matter how discreet Master Foshinot may have been, news of your family's doings never stays secret for long. Things being what they are, what brings you back to the city now, of all times? We have questions, and only Charlian has the answers. Tell me, Master Dickon, have you heard anything about an apocalypse called the Final Days? What, like the end of the world? Nothing like that, I'm afraid. And that's what you're here to find? Information on this apocalypse? Yes, whatever we can learn. Unfortunately, your patrons appear to be unwilling to speak to me. I wish there was more I could do to help. But maybe there is. You're a visitor to Charlian, aren't you? Then few will know your face. We should be able to pass you off as a server with none the wiser. We just finished preparing a few orders. Strike up some friendly conversation while you're setting down the food, and you might just get the answers you're looking for. Not a bad idea. I hate to ask, but what do you think? That's the spirit. Pay attention now, and I'll explain where each of these dishes needs to go. The tea set is for the chuddy group sitting by the water's edge. The omelette is for one of our regulars, a Highlander by the name of Gisla. She's sitting at an outside table with a friend of hers. Behind them, you should see a Mikote gentleman. He ordered the oven-baked lobster. Got all that? If you're not sure, just ask and I'll explain again. Good luck. Tea set. Oh, my tea set. Lovely. Thank you. The who? I'm sorry. I never heard of them or their final days. My friends and I are somewhat uninformed when it comes to current events. Now, if you wanted to hear about ritual arcane practices of the 6th Astral Era, common or esoteric, then I'd be happy to talk your ear off. Ah, finally. 2, 4, 6, 8. Let's dig in. No time to waste. What? The Tillefroy? Ah, yes. I remember seeing the name in the latest Gazette. That and some grand claim about the end of days. Same old senseless warmongering. When will these fools grow tired of spilling each other's blood? Let's stay out of it, I say. The Forum made the right choice, and I fully support our decision to remain neutral. And here we go, the final one, which is a no-brainer. Oh, wait. At last, the oven-baked lobster is mine. You have no idea how long I've been scrimped and saved and suffered to afford this a heavenly dish. The final days? This is the first I've heard of it. Although, that would explain why my friend has been rushed off his feet. Might be a busy time to be a gleaner. You don't know what a gleaner is. They're collectors of a sort. Travel the world procuring things that we haven't gotten here, Charlian. Priceless books, unusual live specimens, and so forth. So named for those folk who trail after the reapers in the fields, picking up every grain which was missed. Aye, by all accounts, gleaning is a most meticulous and demanding profession. If these Telefroi make good on their audacious threats, then many uncatalogued rarities could be lost forever. Why else would the gleaners be buzzing about in such a frenzy? Watch the harbor and you'll see what I mean. They're carting loads in from docks to the docks all day. It's never been this hectic before. Not like this. Oh, so that's our possible lead then. Okay. Any trouble with the customers? Were you able to get anyone talking? Somewhat. Interesting. They seem unaware of the final days, aside from whatever vague news that gazettes are printing. Even Dickard had nothing to offer, and he's the best source of gossip in the city. If the Forum does have secret knowledge, then they have done an impressive job of ensuring no one whispers it in the wrong ear. In any case, thank you for playing the part so well. Here, the cup of coffee I promised. But let's enjoy a drink somewhere else, shall we? Maybe behind the peristyle, away from the gossips and their wagging tongues. Alright, here we go. We might get one more voiceover. We'll be lucky to get a voiceover cutscene here, who knows? I'm actually interested to see where the rest of this story is gonna go. But first... Yes, this should do nicely. Out of the wind and out of sight.
When our father disowned us, I couldn't believe what I was hearing. It wasn't until much later that his words began to sink in, that I began to feel the weight of what it meant. Do you remember when the decision was made to come to Charlian?
I think I do.
Graham said that the Forum was determined to keep us in the dark, and that Father's venomous performance was part of that strategy, to keep us at arm's length. Perhaps it was. Father argued with Grandfather on many occasions, but never with such dismissive contempt. And when he demanded what justifies the sacrifices we make in war, I honestly didn't know what to say. Neither did Alpha know, I know, but never for one moment did I believe we had made the wrong choice. So all I could do was fume silently. It was only afterwards that I realized how childish I had been, how being stubborn and self-righteous must run in the family. If I could have just mustered a civil response, then things might have turned out differently.
That's what one of the customers were talking about.
They must be ferrying goods to Labyrinthos. A vast complex beneath the island. Sharlayan is famous for archiving knowledge from around the world. Well, that knowledge is not preserved exclusively in dusty tomes and desiccated samples. Our living library, comprised of all manner of flora and fauna, is housed and studied within that underground facility. Still, that did seem to be an unusually large shipment. When I lived here, it was rare to even see such cargo transported by boat. Wait, didn't you hear something in the last stand about the gleaners coming and going more than usual? Well, I think they're the ones we saw manning those boats. And gleaners answer to the Forum. If the appearance of the Telophoroi prompted this sudden burst of activity, then Labyrinthos may hold a clue as to what the Forum is planning.
The plot again thickens. Yes, the plot continues to thicken. And once again, if I had another hour or two, I would like to see the rest of the story unfold, but it's getting late here. But again, I appreciate you guys waiting for me to do this finally. Tonight was not the best time, but I wanted to get, a springboard going. I got all of these done. Jesus. I finally got all of these done. Level 100. Oh my god, it took forever. And the good news, like I said before, I finally got all the jobs to level 90, especially the gear sets. The head, the body, legs, rings, everything is at level 90. Oh man, that took a lot of work and gil, but I'm happy. I only got like 75,000 gil right now, but the grinding was worth it. And the best part is, everything on the societal relations is done. IRR, Heaven's Word, Stormblood, and Shadowbringers. All of them are done. The only thing I need to worry about is the Endwalker ones, which we have yet to unlock. So, but the worst is over. The only thing that needs to be done is just continue more of the MSQ and do some duty roulette on the side. I was going overtime with the duty roulette just to get as much done. Everything is done finally. And now we just have to level these up to 100. But again, I can finally experience the story and find out what all these other side quests are about. Probably pretty straightforward, but we'll find out soon enough. But I'm so happy that I'm caught up with Endwalker now. We could just do the story. Thank God. Feels so satisfying not to be behind. Unlike previous expansions, I've made sure to level everything up before doing Endwalker, because I have a feeling the story in this one is going to be big. And I don't think it's going to be happy ending. But we will see. We will see how it's going to go. We'll eventually get to the story. And also the post-content as well. Oh boy, can only imagine what those are like. But yeah, I gotta head off right now, folks. It's getting late, but it's been a pleasure. And also, my rivals, hopefully we'll continue to meet some nice people in that game. It really is nice to play that game and get some wins, especially if you meet the right people. The challenge so far is pretty fun for the most part. Anyway, it's been a blast, folks, but I gotta head off here. Later, guys. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Today.